Hi, this is Darcy Wheeler, broker at Asset Management Real Estate, and I'm here to answer some of the questions I get from my investor clients and some of the property management customers that we have who are considering our business for property management on how we process tenant applications and pick great tenants for the homes we take care of. So the first thing that you have to do to successfully process applications and pick good tenants is you have to set criteria on what standards those tenant applications are going to have to meet in order to be approved by our company or by you as a landlord. So when we set criteria and we show the tenant a property, we give them a copy of what our application qualifications are before they apply, so they know if they want to spend the money to apply, since once we start processing the application, the fee is non-refundable. So our qualification standards at Asset Management Real Estate start with a valid state ID. So we want to see the person's driver's license, or in some situations we look at a passport or a Florida ID card, something so we have a way to verify their name and their date of birth. We also require that they submit a social security number with our online application so that we can pull a credit and background check, and we process that check through TransUnion. And we do get a score that comes back. So one of our criteria for minimum credit score is the score must be at least a 620. Anything below that, we would have the right to ask for additional security or a cosigner, or we could deny based on what's on the credit report. When we're looking at income, we want to make sure that the tenants make at least twice the amount of the monthly rent, the utilities associated with the property, and any other debt that shows up on their credit report. So we're basically looking at their bill obligation and making sure they make at least twice that amount, or we term it as a 50% debt to income ratio, similar to what a mortgage company would look at when qualifying debt to income. If somebody is a W-2 wage earner, we require they submit pay stubs, and then we take it a step further and we verify their employment and their wages with their employer directly. If somebody is self-employed, then we require tax returns, and we'd like to see at least 2 years tax returns if available. And then we look at bank statements. Depending on the applicant and the tax returns, we might require as many as 3 months, 6 months, 12 months worth of bank statements to show that that money that they're claiming as income is regularly entering their account. So we have a couple of different ways to look at that if they're self-employed. So when we look at the credit report, we are looking to see that the person doesn't have a history of delinquent payments, late payments, that there's no collections, especially collections referenced to housing expenses like electric bills or late mortgage payments, or some kind of, collection from an apartment community, let's say. We also look for evictions, and a lot of times evictions will get flagged on the credit report or connected to the credit report, but sometimes they don't. So we leverage the addresses that the tenant has given us as their past addresses, in addition to the addresses that show up on the credit report, and we go through each county. So let's say it's a Pinellas County address, we would look up the clerk of court site, and we would put the tenant's name in and verify if there's any previous eviction or active ongoing eviction in the counties that they've lived in, because sometimes that doesn't make it to the credit and background check. So when we're looking at criminal history, anything that is a situation with distribution and manufacturing of controlled substances, or anything that's a sexual related crime, it's a flat out denial for us. Everything else we look at on a case-by-case basis, which is a requirement with fair housing and HUD guidelines. So we try to be very fair and compliant with HUD rules, and it's case-by-case and an overall opinion of the application if there is a felony charge. In addition to looking up the county clerk site, we also look at each tenant's social media profile. We look at Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, just to get a feel for who they are on a personal social level. And then we also do Google searches to make sure there's nothing else that we can find that relates to them that might be unsatisfactory when we're deciding on the character of a person. We verify landlord references for these tenants as well. So we ask for 5 years of rental history, and we go and we get a reference from each property that they've lived at in the last 5 years. And what we're looking for there is positive opinions from the landlord or the property manager on how the tenant paid rent, if they left the property in good condition, if they were tidy, if they had any pets or unauthorized pets. If there was unauthorized occupants, we're looking to make sure that they've treated their past landlords well and they left the properties in good condition before we rent them something in our portfolio. And when it comes to pets, we do allow pets in many of our rental properties. We request the applicant submit the vet records and the immunization records for their pet, as well as a photo of the pet so we know who's supposed to be on premises. So another thing that we see quite often is a tenant will submit an application with an emotional support animal or a service animal. And fair housing dictates that if the tenant has a letter from a medical professional stating that the animal is required to treat their disability, then we cannot ask for additional security. We can't do any pet rent or any other requirements that we would when an applicant has a pet. However, we can ask for a copy of that letter stating that the animal is a prescription, and we can also ask for vet records to make sure that the animal has been taken care of, but we cannot charge a deposit or pet rent in relation to that emotional support animal or service animal. So I hope that helps you understand all of the effort that goes into finding great tenants and processing applications. It's definitely not the easiest part of our job as property manager, but we think it's one of the most important because we are giving the tenant the rights to the home for a minimum of a year on a typical basis. So we really want to get to know the tenants that we are approving and make sure that they meet our standards and that they're going to take good care of the homes that we manage. So if you have any additional questions on tenant application and screening and any advice you need, please feel free to reach out to me or my staff. We'd be happy to answer your questions. Thanks so much.